You're going to want to lead this hook, put some weight on it so this fly will sink. Take about a 2.5, 3-inch piece of lead wire, go up to the eye just a little bit, and start wrapping. I want to wrap about 2/3 of the shank of the hook. Take my thumbnail, pinch off the back, take my thumbnail in my right hand, run it underneath the eye of the hook, pinch that off. Now center that on the shank of the hook. I'll start my thread now back from the eye on the shank of the hook and take about 5 turns. Cut my material, always cut my materials on top, that way I never cut my thread underneath. I want to anchor that lead by wrapping over it back and forth several times, making sure that I go down on the shank of the hook each time. Tail of this fly is going to be a Hungarian partridge feather. These are neat little birds. There are tons of feathers on them. I'm just going to pull one feather off. And I want to use just the very best part of this feather. So I'm going to strip all that fluff off that feather. I'm going to squeeze that all together. I want the tail of this fly to be gap length past the bend of the hook. The gap is from the point to the shank of the hook, this distance here. So that's how far I want this to extend past the bend of the hook. Now that I have my distance, I can see where my thread is, where I'm going to attach it. I'm going to switch hands. Bring it up there and I'm going to take one very loose wrap around it and then pull towards me. And then attach that in good shape, wrapping back all the way back to the bend of the hook. I've got my tail attached. This butt end now we can just cut off. I'm going to attach my rib now, and I've got about a 2.5, 3-inch piece of oval gold tinsel. I'm going to lay that on the shank of the hook. Take one very loose turn around it with my thread. Now pull towards me and attach that in good shape. Again, wrapping back to the bend. I'm going to bring my thread halfway up the shank of the hook now. Now I'm going to apply my hare's ear dubbing. And the hare's ear dubbing has not only the fine underfur, but it also has the guard hairs in there. That's what gives this fly a real buggy look. What I'm going to do, just moisten my finger just a little bit and take just a few hairs. I'm going to lay them on the thread and twist in one direction. I'm going to continue down the thread, adding just a little bit at a time. If you're having trouble putting dubbing on, chances are you're trying to put it on too thick. Once I get a couple inches on there, I'm going to start wrapping. And apply a little more. Notice my hands are just twisting in one direction. I'm taking a very little bit, just enough to cover that thread, that's it. A little bit more. And still just a little bit more. Now I'm going to wrap my rib. When I go to tie that off, I'm going to hold it straight up in the air, drop my bobbin over the back, switch hands. So now my tinsel's in my left hand. I'm going to take my bobbin with my right, put tension on my thread by pulling towards me, and I can let go of that tinsel now. Take 5 turns over the top to attach it. I'm going to attach my flashback material now, which is crystal flash. I'm going to even up those ends and leave just enough on my fingers to attach. I'm going to hold that on the side of the shank towards me and take one loose wrap. I want to get it on the top now. I'll wrap back to where my body is. I want to attach that in pretty good shape. I don't want this pulling out on me. I now have my wing casing attached, my crystal flash wing casing. I'll bring my thread up to just in back of the eye of the hook now. Finish off my thorax. I'm again going to take my dubbing, moisten my finger just a little bit, take just a very small amount. I'm going to attach this to the thread. Too much. You're better off putting too little on than too much. If you're having trouble putting dubbing on, it's because you're trying to put on too much at a time. After I get a couple inches, now I'm going to wrap my thorax. And I want to make sure I wrap back over my body just a little bit. I don't want any gaps in there. I'm going to build this up. I want my thorax to be thicker than the tail of this fly. I'm building it up not by putting more dubbing on at one time. I'm building it up by layering it. Putting 2, 3, 4 layers of dubbing. That's what's needed to build this up to the right dimension of what I want. So a little bit more. Take my crystal flash for my flashback now and pull that over the top. I'm going to drop my bobbin over the back and pull my bobbin towards me. Take some wraps to attach that in pretty good shape. I'm going to pull on that a little bit just to tighten it up, make it nice and tight. Now I can cut those nice and close. Now we need to finish off our head. I'm going to take my half-hitch tool, lay it on the thread, go one turn around the tool and up to the eye of the hook. Gently slide that thread off. Now I'm going to go twice around the tool, up to the eye of the hook, and gently slide that thread off. That's a double half hitch. And lift up on it to lock it in place. And now I can cut my thread. Now I want to rough this thing up a little bit. I've done such a good job at putting on my dubbing. that it's wrapped it down nice. I want to make this, give this some legs by just roughing up with my bobbin, my needle, just pulling some of those long guide hairs out of there, just to make this look a little bit more buggy. Now we can add our head cement. Seal that in just a little bit. Now I've applied a second coat of head cement to make that really stand up and flash. Now we've got our completed flashback hairs here.